This program is for old people. If you're not old, don't listen. That's right. This is not for you. You're not supposed to listen. This is only for old people. Okay? So you're old. All right. Then you can listen. Saturday night rituals for old people. And what that might mean for you, your life, your business. I think there's something we can learn about that and about the future from looking at the past. I'm Stan Houston. The program is called The Master Entrepreneur. It's brought to you by the Christian Entrepreneur Network, TCENglobal.org. And our Saturday night begins right now.
He careth for you. He careth for you. When the worries and cares of your life seem to block out the rays of His light, never forget, never lose sight, for He careth for you, for He careth for you.
Now that theme song takes me back many years when I wasn't old, but I'm old now, and I embrace just exactly that. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that, and perhaps you embrace it too. Many years ago, when I began my radio career at a place called Trans World Radio, a big, real muscle station, as we said. It was 500,000 watts, 7 towers, broadcasting all around the world. And Caribbean Night Call is the program that I and a few of my friends and colleagues put together. And it was just that, Caribbean Night Call. It was a program for people who were up and were wondering what life was all about late at night. And that was the theme song. He careth for you. Hey, it's late night. He careth for you. And something that kind of dates me is the term night call. Well, where did that term come from? Well, some of you who are a little bit older know. There was a time when if you made a long-distance phone call, it was expensive. Unlike today, where you almost can call around the world at virtually no cost, to make a long-distance call was expensive. And you could save some money if you would make it after a certain hour. And that was called a night call. If you would stay up later and make your call between a certain hour late in the evening and before early morning, you could save some money on a night call. Do some of you remember that? Well, that was the name of the program. And we broadcast live every day, every night, around the world. And here was what we were all about, trying to connect with people who, for some reason, and there were many reasons, people who had to be up and awake and doing something in the late night hours. And of course, that meant that some people were in deep distress. Some people were working the night shift. In fact, on one of the programs, I did exactly what I just did as kind of a catch way. I started the program by saying, and on Caribbean Night Call tonight, we're going to be talking to those of you who are on the road. Over-the-road truckers, this program is for you. And if you're not an over-the-road trucker, change the station. Did you hear me? This is for truckers. Well, of course, you know a little bit of the thing I was doing, being a little bit silly, but of course the fact that I said it was for truckers meant that if you were a trucker, and there were many of them, they were going to be particularly paying attention. But a lot of people were going to say, oh, hey, what is he going to talk about for truckers that he doesn't want me to hear about? And that was kind of the radio technique that we were using. And so if you're not, you can't do. But of course, everybody's welcome, and you're welcome to this program too. Yesterday, I talked about the fact that a 94-year-old woman told the doctor, my good friend Dr. Jim, she said, hey, Dr. Jim, hurry up. I've got my personal work to do. And of course, the point is, what does a 94-year-old woman who's blind, in a wheelchair, in a nursing home, what does she have to do that's so important that she wants the doctor to hurry up? Well, I asked you to think about that, and I'm sure many of you came up with perhaps what she was all about. There was thoughts. There was prayer. There was thinking. She could still hear, so there was perhaps some audiobook listening that she wanted to do. She loved to do that. And of course, one of the things I did for many years as a volunteer is I would do books for the blind and newspapers for the blind, so that people who, couldn't see could actually hear some of the latest literature and, of course, the latest news. So that's a part of what it might have been. But my point was this, okay, as we get older, we should think about not retiring, not finding out a way to do less, but to think about perhaps that one of the advantages of being in this state and stage of life is that we have some real important personal work to do. And what is your personal work? What would it be? What could it be? What should it be? And perhaps, no matter what your career is, no matter what business you're in, there might be some smartness that even before you get old, that you think about. As an entrepreneur of my life, work that I can choose, not one that is chosen for me by the career I have or the boss I work for or the company's commitment. What's my personal work to do? What do I believe that perhaps God has called me to be and to do? And that's what we wanted you to think about, flowing from Friday night through tonight and perhaps on until the weekend. It's Saturday night. Now, if you're old like me and brought up in the tradition that I was brought up in, is that Saturday night had very specific rituals. Yes, Saturday night, you took a bath. That's right. Bath night. Now, that didn't mean we didn't take baths or get cleaned up any other time, but we did take a bath on Saturday night. And I and my brothers knew that after a hard day of playing, Mom was going to take off our clothes and she was going to put them in the washing machine, and she was going to wash our clothes, and we were going to get a bath. Now, there was something nice about that, is usually because Saturday night was getting ready for church, Mom and Dad usually made the meal for Saturday night a little bit special. I know that we very seldom had pizza. We really couldn't afford it that much. But oftentimes they would make themselves, for us, a pizza. And that was Saturday night. We were also expected, after a certain age and stage, that we would shine our shoes. Now, occasionally, every once in a while, Dad might do it for us, but particularly as we got older, we were expected that our shoes had to be polished for going to church on Sunday. And so on Saturday night, we had to get the shoebox out and we had to rummage through, and we had to find the shoe polish that matched the shoes that we had for Sunday, and we had to polish our shoes and make sure they looked nice for church. Yep, getting ready for Sunday. Now let me tell you, there's something very good about that. Saturday night, sometimes rather than being as it might have been when we were younger, when we would go out and carouse and have a good time and enjoy the later curfew because it wasn't a school night. Because of that, we might do so. As we get older, we get a little more reflective about that. In the community where I live right now, where a number of us oldsters live, when we go to the restaurant or the clubhouse, the joke is that last call is usually sometime after 8, because by that time, most people have decided that it's time to go to bed, go home, go rest. Take Saturday night. Now let me segue into that. Thinking about that reminds me of the fact that it was important that we had our Saturday night projects and our Sunday responsibilities. Now, what's true about the world today is more and more we have to think of the projects we have to do. Not necessarily the work you are doing, but the projects you have to do. Let me just take a few minutes before we close off tonight and perhaps give you an idea about how you can have a much greater marketing presence and perhaps far more effectiveness if you think of your life in terms of projects. I'm Stan Houston. This is The Master Entrepreneur, because you have to master your life. You have to master your relationships. You have to follow the master entrepreneur. And perhaps you've decided that when it comes to life and business, you're going to create your own company, your own destiny, your own business. And that's what you do. Project time. We'll be back. Today, we sometimes call this the gig economy. And that's because more and more people aren't employed by a company. They are doing their own thing. And very much as the performing world has always said, if they got a performance or they had booked an appearance, it was called a gig. You got a gig. That was great. That means you're going to make some money that night, make money that day, because you got a gig. And you're going to get paid for that. Maybe not very much, but you got a gig. And so the gig economy has grown. Now, what I have discovered is that more and more, most of us are going to have to think of our lives in terms of gigs, and particularly as we get a little bit older. Because, what are we going to do? We probably don't have the full-time career anymore, nor do we want it. But God may have called us to some gigs, to some projects. Now, I oftentimes tell younger people is when someone asks you what you do for a living, tell them what project you're working on. Don't say, well, I'm a lawyer, or I'm a plumber, or I'm a welder, or I'm a doctor. Tell them the project that you're working on. If somebody would ask me right now, hey, Stan, what do you do? I say, hey, right now I'm working on a project. I'm helping people around the world build a international World Wide Web app so that people all around the world can be connected in a circle of prayer and help and career and life and leadership guidance. That's the project I'm involved in right now. Now, that may provoke questions, and that's obviously something that is important. And then I can simply say, and by the way, what are some of the projects you're involved in now? And what you're finding is a much greater and fuller description of what our lives are about, not just where we work or what we might do. So a little clue as you mark your way into the marketplace at the first of the week. Think in terms of projects. What project do you do? I'm Stan Houston. I'd appreciate hearing from you. RadioEdge77@gmail.com. RadioEdge77@gmail.com. Check us out at TCEN Global, TCENglobal.org. And if you would agree to sponsor some of the work we do at TCENglobal.org/contribute now, I would be grateful. Some closing thoughts, and then we're gone. Indeed, it's Saturday night. Let me ask you this question. Now that we've gone through some of the rituals and some of the ideas of gig, I've helped people discover that the word gig could mean, what is the thing that makes you glad in God? What is the activity that makes you glad in God? What could it be? Particularly if you're at this stage in life, what's God's next project in life for you? What's your next God project? Something that obviously could benefit you and benefit others and simply be a way to help yourself and help others and enjoy your life. But what do you think God would have to say about your glad in God, your gig project? What might that be? If you're at this stage in life, don't die out. If you do anything, burn out. And as someone said, be careful. Burnout can come from boredom in a career. And burnout when you're older can come simply from the fact that you don't have any care anymore. And you've got boredom too. What's the next project? You can choose. It's not being chosen for you. What's the next project, the next gig that God may have in store for you? If you go to church tomorrow, and as you say your prayers, perhaps you want to think about that. God, we're into 2020. Almost the end of the second month of 2020. I want to make this year count. I want it to be significant. God, what's the next project that perhaps I should find, discover, or seek to create that will help me be a blessing to others? As I've pointed out in life, basically there's no neutrality. When you encounter others, you either bless or you curse. And what would be your blessing project for the family you have, the friends you have, the people in your community, the people where you might work, even the business that you still might do? How can you project a blessing? Because one of your projects should always be, every day, to create blessings for others. I'm Stan Houston. This is The Master Entrepreneur, and we're so glad that you are with us. See you tomorrow if that works out. All the best and blessings, and bye for now.